We have a great group here. Full disclosure, on my way over, I did check ChatGPT and asked, what would you ask this group of people at this kind of panel? Give me 1 or 2 questions. It gave me 15, overzealous. And I was heartened because several of them overlap with what I already have. And then I started to feel a little bit anxious because they overlapped with what I have. So maybe AI is coming for my job. Dilshoda, I'll start with you because I feel like you have a nice, good, broad visibility into what we're talking about today. Do you feel like banks should be using AI agents for more vertical specific use cases or more generalizable use cases? And what are you seeing the most of or hearing the most of right now from folks that work with you?
I think for me, point solutions do not scale. Obviously, you do need platforms that have vertical depth and knowledge. But imagine you have investment bankers using one point solutions, you have your financial advisors using another, your marketers using a third, and in the end, you'll end up with 50, 60 different solutions, and you'll have a ton of agents. But instead of a transformation, you will actually end up with fragmentation. And that doesn't scale. You do need one unified platform where you can supervise, observe agents, see what data they're connected to. And then also you can reuse certain component pieces of those agents. For example, the 10K analysis agent could be used, or the block could be used both by your investment bankers. It could also be used by your financial advisors. It could be also used by your customer-facing folks. So there's some reusability. But one platform unified approach allows you to transform yourself and scale more efficiently. The second piece is interoperability. Let me take a portfolio reporting example. I'm a former hedge fund manager, and while you can have a point solution that will have your portfolio attribution data and can build a market commentary on top of it, you also need to be able to connect to your compliance system to pull the correct disclosures. You also need to be able to alert your portfolio manager that they need to review something and then push it into another system to be able to be sent to a client, right? And agents and the productivity from agents comes from that interoperability. And unfortunately, point solutions, not many of them are able to offer that. That's another. The third piece, it's really important that you have a platform that allows your business and IT teams to collaborate. It is a mistake to just give the transformation into the hands of IT. It's really important that IT is there and it's leading it and it's governing it and putting complex agents together. But your credit analysts know the most about how they analyze a credit memo. Your portfolio managers, depending on whether they're value or growth PMs, know the most about what is really important to them in a 10K. And so that ability to have your humans that know a lot about a specific problem be able to guide the agent, prompt the agent, give examples to the agent, while IT is connecting different pieces is what you need to be successful. And that's why at Writer we built this platform that unifies business and IT and provides this foundation layer to build these highly specific interoperable agents. And we also believe in verticalization. So we have folks like me, who's again, former hedge fund PM. We have folks who've worked in banking, former doctors, who are helping build these solutions. But again, it's all in a one unified platform approach.
I'm struck by the collaboration that you point to there between AI and the humans with expertise. Ryan, maybe we can chat about how do we avoid agents just creating redundancies with the expertise that you already have?
Yeah, it's a great question, Seth. Thanks for having us. I think this is great. When we think about this balance between human and agent, the framing that I like to use is that we see agentic AI kind of going through this maturity curve, this from assist, augment, action, right? Like we'll all use agentic AI and capabilities to assist us on common things that are easily automated. And you heard some of the speakers earlier today talk about things like call summaries, drafting emails, that type of thing. That's the assistant stuff. But then as you get your data together, as you integrate, it starts to augment. This is where you really start to unlock the institutional knowledge, that business context that you're talking about, that it's important to connect the dot with the business so that you put it at the fingertips of everybody in the firm, not just the people that are doing the research or our, for Vanguard, our advice methodology or our investment methodology folks, but it's really about, hey, how do I help accelerate that employee, that crew member, so that they can spend time on higher order things. And then ultimately, it takes action for us, where we're able to have it do simple things now, and as we build more and more complex with the appropriate guardrails, it'll be able to do complex things. But it's important to kind of connect the dot between what is it that you're trying to actually solve, what's the business problem that you're trying to solve, and how do you help your crew, your employees be more effective, more so they can serve more clients, right? So they can have a bigger book because they're not held back by those routine tasks that we can easily automate.
And I think you point out a larger question that's interesting for this group. Where do you think we are right now on this curve of augmenting, or outright replacing certain roles? Do you see that we're getting close to that automation phase in financial services, or do we have a ways to go there?
Do you want me to start? Sure. I can go. And again, thanks for having us. Look, I think one, I'd say we're naturally very much in the assess to augment space, right? Like assess is where the value has been driven, largely in financial services, and I think in the medium to short term, you'll still see the value coming in from sort of the assess and learning into the augment pieces. There's a great acceleration towards getting into AI agents with action and independent action. And that will happen over the next few months, years, right? I think that'll get through. But I think the key point in this is it's more, I think of it as slightly different frame than just sort of this linear path, right? It's a little bit of what, Ryan, you were talking about, which is it's a business transformation, really. It's your process, it's the data, it's the capabilities that go in, and the human collaboration that goes with it. All of that needs to start changing. And I think that's the dimension that sort of needs more evolution than the AI agents. I think some of the speakers were talking about earlier too, right? Like AI agents will keep expanding and like the models behind it will continue to improve. But what needs to change is how the business operates with these agents first. That evolution, I think, is going to take a little bit longer.
David, maybe you could chat for a minute with us about what needs to change or happen when it comes to the way we handle data or the way we permission employees in the companies to use these agents to really ensure that the value can spread throughout a corporation as much as possible.
Yeah, it's a key question. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the invite to being here this afternoon. So down in Sydney in Westpac, we've been thinking about this for a fair bit. What are the things we need to unlock to really scale this activity? And there's a long list. There's thousands of things that have to happen. But if I encapsulate in sort of three main themes, one is all around trust, one is around quality, and one is around people. If I just touch on them briefly, trust, we're all banks, and the foundation of a bank is trust. We don't operate without the trust of our community that we serve. And so if we're going to deploy agents, we need to create that level of trust for our customers, for our staff, and that comes into things like ensuring that we've got observability and monitoring and our permissions, as you said, the entitlements, is looking after the boundaries correctly in terms of what these agents can do. And we're going to have to move to an entirely new entitlement system. Adopting identity access management, as we know, for humans just doesn't port, we've found, into working with agents anymore. We're moving from a role-based activity to much more a purpose-based activity. And so that's something new. Then on the quality front, there's a whole host of challenges around that, from hallucinations that we have to eliminate or minimise down to a very low level at least, to ensuring that we're able to test these things at scale. We were talking last night about using digital twin technologies to be able to test these things to give us confidence to release into production. These are interesting challenges. We need to be ensuring continuous improvement. These agents are going to run and operate, and we're going to have to monitor, but also understand it's not just monitoring, but improving them. And then the final big unlock is our workforce, is our people, is our customers, our citizens. We're going to have to educate, we're going to have to train. And I've been listening to a number of conversations today, and I'm not sure it's been mentioned yet, but I'm sure it's on a lot of people's mind, is, you know, that whole unlock of the workforce and people. It starts with leadership, having a good CEO sponsorship, making sure you put, you know, training in place, education in place, and that's a whole range of things that need to happen to make that true. And then giving access to these capabilities so people can play and touch and feel, to eliminate the fears and concerns that some of our people have. So they're the three big things that we see at scale, and obviously there's thousands of things behind those things to enable us to scale.
You know, I think a big subject of debate in recent weeks has been this question of the ROI from AI deployed within organizations. There have been 3 or 4 academic reports just since the summer raising questions about how much people are really getting. And I think that really raises 2 points probably for this group. One is, what are the real value-oriented tasks that organizations are using AI and AI agents for? And I think the other question is how we're measuring that value. Maybe we can actually start with the latter. I'm curious, you know, David, Kunal, how do you think about that question of measuring, improving the value that we're getting from AI agents?
Yeah. You want to go first? Look, I think we've been maniacal about measuring the value when it comes to using any of the AI and Gen AI tools. And maybe just like even to step back a little bit, right? We are definitely sort of, whether you call it the hype cycle or not, with a lot of focus on AI, but we've been doing this for 10 plus years. Right? We've got a process in place to measure the value before we build something on our machine learning models that are deployed internally. And so we use that same framework of, as we deploy it, what data, what costs, what capabilities come in, and what's the end result associated with it. The point, though, I'll make on ROI, and especially for when you're using agents and you're using LLMs, is it's a process change that goes with it, and that's what's driving a bulk of the ROI. A lot of the studies that came in earlier, right, they talk about sort of the plug-and-play POCs. That doesn't generate ROI, and I think that's the big unlock of like rethinking how you do things with the tools. And I think it's a natural technology evolution anyway, but it's just somehow, because it's so much easier to just deploy the model as is, that people are not sort of getting there, right? And what we found, and I think most other financial services organizations are finding, is you got to change the end-to-end to get to the ROI.
Yeah, and I feel there is real calcification of some of these processes, right? The organizations took decades to form them, and it's really hard to start forcing yourself to think differently. And that's why most firms that I'm seeing in the industry start with, let's take an existing process and embed AI into it. And then as they move along that maturity curve and become more and more familiar with the technology, they challenge themselves to think about, how can I do this completely differently? What can I do that I couldn't just do with humans, right? There's a customer we're working with, and they're thinking of, hey, how about we give all our financial advisors almost their own agency to generate content at scale. This is something you can't, otherwise you would need to hire so many agencies and so many humans, right? And so to get to the ROI, you really, just like Kunal was saying, you should get through that calcification and really push yourself and challenge yourself to think blue sky, to transform those processes. And that's when I think you'll see real transformation and real value coming through, as opposed to incrementalism, which is what, you know, a lot of folks started with.
Can I just add to that and build on it? I think at the end of the day, customers have got to be key in every narrative you have around every use case. You know, it's got to improve the customer performance. I think we focus a lot on the productivity aspects, and they're easier to measure. But you know, we certainly focused on experience, and whether that's you know, the NPS scores and things like that with our customers, or even internally, that's an important metric, so that we're ensuring that the end experience is right. Even our internal workforce, like our software engineers, we're polling them and understanding whether they're having a good experience, better experience or not. So I think they're important. One thing we did really quite early in the large language phase, because I agree with you that we've been doing this for many years, but the LLM phase was, it was a difficult work to work out how to measure that. And so we actually put it into our R&D lab, and we ran true experiments on these things. You remember at college and university we had to sort of put a hypothesis together and, you know, benchmark it. And so that's the level we went to. Even in software engineering, because as everyone who's in software engineering knows, you never write the same code twice. So how do you measure productivity? So we actually did that. We took 40 engineers off the line, and gave them you know, broke them into 4 teams and gave them the same piece of coding to write 4 times, and we were able to measure really clearly, and we repeated that with other types of use cases, and so that gave us a sample set, a really good high quality sample set of what is the true productivity measured, and then it's a case of just measuring adoption, you know, because adoption then based on that maths could give us an ROI basis. So, and then the last thing I'd say is, we knew that this was helping out with personal productivity across the whole enterprise, and the most important thing was, as I come back to my third unlock, which is all about people, we want people to get familiar with us and used to it. So for the last 18 months, our main metric at the company level has been about active usage or active adoption, because we know that we want people to learn, because if people are learning about it, using it, then they're going to be thinking about it and they're going to be driving the forward look at it. So.
Yeah, Seth, very similar. Just to give you one other key consideration, I think, that builds on, we're at a very similar place. We've been at it for 10 years. We measure value around revenue growth, crew productivity, cost avoidance, risk reduction. So, but I think what's important is separating, hey, measuring the value versus deciding how to harvest the value, which are 2 very, very different things. And so as you build that adoption, as you move from people using AI to doing AI and rethinking the process, then you have the opportunity as a business leader to say, okay, we're now more productive than we've ever been. How do we harvest that? How does that show up for our clients? How does that show up for our crew? How much more time are we giving them to engage with clients from a financial advice perspective? So that then you can make kind of the strategic decision on how it's actually going to show up in that return on investment. And so, but you have to start somewhere, right? You have to measure it somewhere. So another key consideration.
Like I said in the start, part of it is how we measure, and part of it is what tasks are we choosing to focus on here. I feel like we've hinted at a couple in this conversation: engineering, content creation. What is one area that you feel like in financial services we are seeing very clear either productivity gains or value adds, or that you expect to see in the months ahead from AI agents for the group, whoever wants to volunteer?
Maybe I'll start. Look, and I'll start because I'll cheat. Where you're seeing value is in all the summarization, classification, replacing manual triage. Those AI agents are showing real value. Back to some of the points Ryan's making on sort of changing the process that Dilshoda's making. You do that, you get real value out of it. And that's what we're seeing. I think what the coming months part, what I'm particularly excited about, what across the industry, what I'm getting to see is this scaling of expertise that AI is enabling, as you get into sort of your augmentation phase maybe, but just taking expertise that was with our top performers to now sort of spreading it out across the board. That is the set of tasks that I think is looking forward, like in the next few months, it's going to drive most value.
Yeah, for us, it's our advisors, call summaries, relationship summaries. You heard earlier, software developers, we're seeing significant improvement in regards to how much time it's taking to get features out, et cetera. But it ultimately comes down to, hey, how do you unlock your differentiate? Like, we are doing 2 things. We are diffusing and differentiating. Diffusing is the productivity. The differentiation is like, how do you unlock your expertise that's in the minds of few and enable everybody across the firm. That's where we're going, or directly to your client, right? In some cases.
Yeah, I would say initially what I was seeing in the industry is folks were worried about sensitive data. And so they wanted to start on the content side, the marketing side. That was the low-hanging fruit. Marketers and financial services had to learn how to do more with less. And it was not sensitive data. That is where the experimentation was. CMOs were the trailblazers. They've adopted that technology, and they showed it as a blueprint for how you do it across these banks or investment firms. Now what I'm seeing is folks see the value of the technology. They know it's here to stay. It's not just, hey, experimentation. And what some of the most innovative firms are doing is trying to go wall to wall. Look at use cases like onboarding. Look at use cases like cross-sell generation, credit memos, and loan processing, because right now folks have to wait a really long time to get their loan to be processed, right? And maybe they don't have that time to wait. They'll go to your competitor, right? And so what I'm excited for about what's to come is that ability to unleash that creativity and value and go wall to wall, not just go in the certain subset of use cases, because ultimately it's not just about one killer use case. It's about giving access to your top employees, the ability to unleash their creativity and build these complex multi-agentic flows that allow them to just get all their colleagues more productive and focus on that high value work that Ryan was talking about.
Yeah, for us, a number of these things likewise. So your lending processes, whether it be business lending, mortgage lending, that's coming. Reimagining the contact center experience. There's a whole host of really interesting things that we'll do there. Fraud, scams, cyber, we're a bank. We need to keep ourselves safe. The bad guys have it. We need to be defending ourselves with it. They're big focus areas for us as well. Also, we've talked a lot about coding, but actually we're now more focused on what's left and right of the coding work, right? It's the software delivery life cycle, and thinking about how do you get an idea through to production and then cycle that. And so that, using AI and agents to help with that. But we're also, Westpac's in a bit of a unique space, and we're just undertaking the largest global merger in the world at the moment. So there's migrating customers from one stack to another stack. So you can imagine all the banks that have done this before will know how hard that is, a lot of manual script writing and things like that, and reconciliation processes. We think AI is going to blow that apart. And so we're now thinking about how do we apply AI across all the steps of the customer migration. So that's probably my number one thing, because that's a big unlock for us going forward. That's a bit of a unique scenario though.
Obviously, we're talking a lot about AI here. I want to talk about the human element of it for a moment, which is this question of, one, how do you make your employees feel as comfortable as possible with AI agents? But two, how do you ensure that there's still appropriate talent development? I think there's a big concern that we're going to see a lot of entry-level jobs, go away or be diminished somehow. And of course, we still want to groom that talent for future roles. So how do you think about pairing AI investments with that talent development?
Maybe I'll say something controversial, but I'll go for it. I remember I graduated with my degree in applied math, and I got my MBA from Harvard, and I got my first job. And I remember looking at it, I was like, you're wanting me to do what? I need to populate this spreadsheet and do these calculations and do a lot of, honestly, what felt like, or change this PowerPoint and look for the differences in the spacing. And I felt like, wow, I just spent so much time studying stuff that's really cool and advanced in school. And then what I'm being asked to do is really simple manual tasks. And you kind of have to go through that grind to graduate to that next level of high value work, right? Because again, in the corporate culture, you advance and then you get to do more, high value thinking and impactful work. And in the beginning, you just have to pay your dues, right? And with AI agents and your ability to automate some of these manual tasks means that your humans can focus on that high value work from the beginning. So I'm actually really excited about folks who are coming into these entry-level jobs, because the companies will harness their talent in a very different, in a more meaningful way, such that it's not just let's change the spacing in this PowerPoint and let's input this into a spreadsheet and transfer it over. So I feel like, obviously I'm an AI optimist, I'm at an AI company, but based on my own personal experience, I'm actually excited about what's to come, so that you don't have to go through that grind, manual work to get to that high value activities that you could probably get to sooner.
Yeah. Listen, and that's, I would agree. I think that's for the folks coming in. But when you think about the people that's already in your organization, you have to give them opportunity, learning, building their acumen, but then also give them real challenges to use AI to solve, so it becomes a part of the organization's DNA, so to speak, right? And then celebrate the wins, learn from the mistakes. Listen, we're using the worst models we'll ever use, right? So because of that, we know it's going to change. And so the key to it is to establish this lifelong learning type of growth mindset, so that every software developer, every portfolio manager, every financial analyst, is going to use AI in some way, shape, or form in order to move faster, serve the client better, right? So it's important that you have that leadership that you talked about earlier at the CEO level and board level, but you also enable the organization through training, experimentation, recognition, but also taking the lessons learned and celebrating the failures as well, because we're going to have that, particularly in regulated industries where we have to balance the offense and defense.
I'll just build on that. So absolutely agree with both the comments. One thing we've learned in the training piece, a lot of people jump in and say, let's just train on AI, we'll give them courses, multimodal, all sorts of things. We did that, but actually we had to recognise that you've got to prepare people for that. And so we've just recently run this Shark Tank model, open to the whole company, everyone could get involved. But the first bit of training was on innovation training, how to think innovatively. So how do you identify a problem? How do you feel comfortable expressing that problem? How do you pitch the idea of that problem? So to get people open to that thinking, and then give them the training, then allow them to pitch their ideas and things like that. So unlocking people was really key. The other thing that may want to add to the narrative is, as organisations, we're going to have to create a lot of psychological safety. Things are going to change for employees dramatically, and then they're going to need to feel very comfortable with that change and that transition. And as companies, we're going to need to get really good at redeploying people, to where humans need to be, as those, entry jobs sort of change and shape. We're going to need systems and methods and things like that to know where to put people going forward.
I'm mindful that we just have about a minute left, so I'll do a couple of very fast ones for each of you. What is your current model of choice that you use? Dilshoda, we can start with you.
Palmyra models by writer.
Well played.
I think it's different for different users, but for me right now, I think Gemini 2.5.
I was going right where you were going. I'm a mixture of Gemini, Claude, and Writer. We use Writer.
We have our own fine-tuned model, so we're a fine-tuned model fan. Yep.
Maybe for one more, do you believe, yes or no, that we will have fully automated AI agents that just don't require any hand-holding this decade? Yes or no? Or sooner?
Yes, we have them at Writer. We are developing them in beta, and I was just playing around with it. So yes, definitely sooner than the decade.
I think in the consumer e-commerce space, for sure. I'm not so sure of financial services, right? Like maybe around it. But in the e-commerce space, for sure. And I'm hoping for that to come sooner too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll have it in the next decade. I think some industries sooner than later. You definitely have it at home. In your personal use cases for sure. So,
yeah. David, final word.
Yes, within a few years.
Wonderful. Thank you all, guys.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.